The most expensive flood damage in Knox County may be here at the First Utility District's wastewater pump. It's a station in West Knoxville. Last week, the water pumps were under feet of water, which flooded and damaged the system. The utility district serves about 90,000 customers in Knox County. They are waiting to see if this damage will qualify the county for FEMA assistance.
10 News reporter Shannon Smith gives us a closer look at the problem at that station. Shannon?
Well, guys, for about 5 days, the only way to get to this pump station was by boat. The water was that deep. You're looking at the roof of that 2-level structure here. When First Utility District workers finally got to the equipment late last week, they quickly learned they were looking at what could be millions of dollars in damage. Crews are out Monday at First Utility District's pump stations near South Peters and Ebenezer in West Knoxville. They pump wastewater to the treatment plant for tens of thousands of customers in Knox County. But they're offline right now because just a few days ago, they were underwater.
There would have been no way to access this until Wednesday without a boat.
General Manager Bruce Giles says catastrophic flooding in late February took a huge toll on these pump stations.
It was actually up about 4 feet over the top of this at one point.
Now that the water has receded, the only thing Giles is confident about is the concrete base of the structures.
The pumps themselves are normally fine, but the control panels are not made to get wet. And we had them in watertight enclosures, but after 5 days, nothing can take that type of pressure and moisture on it.
They have a temporary pump pumping about 4,000 gallons of wastewater per minute, which means customers won't notice anything is wrong.
And when we do our jobs, we should be out of sight, out of mind, and that's what we intend to do.
But Giles estimates at a minimum, they're looking at $1.5 million in damage.
At least it could be 4 or 5. We built this station 5 years ago, and we spent $4.2 million.
First Utility District alone could meet the $1.6 million damage requirement to qualify Knox County for aid from FEMA. Statewide, damage would still have to surpass $9.5 million for Knox County to get any reimbursement. Giles says they are working with TDEC, but none of their water is compromised. If they do not qualify for federal aid, Giles says they're ready to fully pay at least that base $1.5 million in damages. Robin, John.
Shannon, thank you.